goals in the Champions League last night in the league phase, and plenty this evening as well.
Chelsea 2, Ajax 0, Moises Caicedo with a second.
Christensen, can he get the shot away in the area?
Oh.
He can! What a move, what a goal! And again, what a save, Vicario! Tyrique racing through on goal, terrific pace, oh, what a finish!
And now they're starting to put balls in the box earlier and quicker.
Ball into the near post, and it in! Virgil van Dijk! Szoboszlai with the out-swinging corner, and there's Konate! Both centre-halves are at it now!
A Liverpool back?
Estevao with the long run-up, stutters into the area and rockets the shot, left-footed. What a player. Chelsea 5, Ajax 1.
And if it wasn't for Vicario, it could have been a very, very different story.
Dominic Szoboszlai, 25 yards out, drills it into the bottom corner and gets Liverpool a fifth. This is like the Liverpool of last season.
Yes, eventful night in the Champions League. A great night Tuesday as well.
Vicario did keep you in it, Paul. A few good saves, wasn't it?
Yeah, about 5.
I thought you were going to nick it at the end when Brendan Johnson with that shot.
That would have been something else.
Yeah, that would have been something else. Yeah.
No, a scuffer. Sadly.
And just as the second Liverpool goal, just as they were about to take the corner, I was thinking they really missed Trent on these dead balls.
Okay,
I think that's what's gone wrong here with Liverpool is they missed Trent on then
Van Dijk scored.
Boosh, and then scored from two corners.
I love Newcastle's third goal the other night. It was a thing of beauty, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
They worked it. Anyway,
great goals.
Let's reflect on what we've learned from the Champions League this week. There's still a big night of European football to come. Andy Brassell, European football expert, joins us. Hi, Andy.
Hello, Andy.
Well, guys, how are you?
Yeah,
good, thank
very
you.
well.
I know you chat with Tim Vicker on a Sunday night on Trans-Europe Express, and he was talking up Estevao and thinking he was the real deal. And I think he's proving it. A lot of maturity for a lad of that age. It was an historic night for Chelsea, wasn't it? And a fantastic penalty. We just heard the commentary on there.
It was quite interesting how you had one setting a mark of being the youngest scorer in the Champions League for Chelsea, and then being beaten, the same record being beaten twice in the same night. But if ever that was going to happen, it was going to happen against Ajax, who are really one of the poorest Ajax sides I can remember seeing, certainly for over 10 years. They're in a real state at the moment. Of course, they were particularly vociferous to travelling fans about John Heitinga, who played a role in Liverpool's success last season in winning the Premier League, but has found it really hard as number one there. And I think it shows that Francesco Farioli, of course, is taking his unbeaten record with Porto to Nottingham Forest tonight. What a brilliant job he did to get them to the last day of the season, winning the title. Because, I think you look at some of the Ajax sides of recent past, particularly the 2019 side, of course, that Lucas Moura finished off and stopped getting to the final in 2019. And you could see the players that were going to end up at other big European clubs. You look at the current team sheet and you're thinking, who's buying these, really?
But it must be so frustrating being Ajax manager that, if you do at all well, you're going to lose half your team, and that happens it goes. Yeah. But that's been for the last 30, 40 years.
You've got all that. You've got
the business.
You've got all that weight of history, but not necessarily the players to deliver it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's certainly the case at the moment. I mean, you look at the two teams that have got no points, like 0 points after these first 3 rounds of the Champions League, two multiple previous winners in Ajax and Benfica, which on one hand tells you how much European football has changed in the last 30, 40 years and how much financially the picture of the European game is different. But Charlie, going back to what you were saying about losing players, I mean, the one thing, if you're Heitinga at the moment, you've got no players to lose. Like I said, no one would want any of those, and that really tells you that it's not entirely his fault, that it's about a failure from the club in terms of using the money they got from that Champions League run and selling De Ligt and De Jong. They've wasted all that money, really, and they're left with a very poor team that Heitinga can't really do much with.
It was great to see the return of Bumfluff to top-level European football.
Who was that,
Step
Paul?
forward, Lennart Karl, who, despite being 17, it said, "Mum, I'm definitely going to grow a beard and moustache, and it might be a bit wispy, but I don't care." But he did step up. He was another one of the kids who scored a memorable goal last night for Bayern.
You say the return of Bumfluff. I mean, did it ever go away?
Well, I don't know. Whatever happened to Bumfluff is an Arthur Smith line. I don't know. I mean, maybe it did. I don't know. Maybe we haven't got time really to dwell on that. Tell us a bit more about Lennart Karl, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an amazing story. Of course, his first Champions League start, 17 years old. and he was fantastic. The goal he scored, the confidence to take it into that central position, and then the finish from the edge of the box was absolutely brilliant. And I think when you look at Bayern's history of producing players, it's funny, we don't really often align Bayern with an Ajax or a Barcelona, but we should. You look at the amount of players they produce, it's extraordinary. And Carl, if you go back a couple of months, he was miles off the first team, absolutely miles. You know, they respected him, they knew he had talent to maybe make it at some point. I think they probably would have loaned him out this season. But you had Paul Vanna, one of the other great hopes, going to PSV. And that and a few departures, really, and a few injuries, really gave him a bit of room to impress in pre-season. He did that really well. He took his opportunity with both hands, and he certainly took his opportunity with both hands last night. Because I think if you look at the big teams who've got big results in the Champions League, particularly last night, of course, you think of Arsenal beating Atletico because Atletico are a sort of Champions League perennial. Club Brugge are tough to knock over. You think of what they did to Rangers in the qualifiers, and then they beat Monaco 4-1 in the first game. And they go and they are absolutely smashed at Bayern last night. And that doesn't really happen to Club Brugge that often. So it just shows you how good Bayern are at the moment.
You're a seasoned Ballon d'Or watcher, Andy. Harry Kane, is it coming too late in his career for that? Is he a sexy enough footballer for it?
Look, if he wins the Champions League, all bets are off, Charlie. That's what I'm saying, because I think it's a weird thing to say, and we said it on Monday's show, didn't we, Paul? But like when he's got to 400 club goals in the last week, and I'm going to ban people talking about Harry Kane numbers because the numbers are disgusting. They're X-rated, but also they don't really describe how good Harry Kane has been for Bayern on and off the field. He's been fantastic, and you know what? If he turns up to the World Cup in this sort of form next summer, fit and in form, it's great news for England.
As 50-year-old Jamie Curran was described by his new club, Kings Park Rangers, he's a man who absolutely stinks of goal. He is. It's a beautiful turn of phrase.
That's lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's talk about Jude Bellingham. A good performance last night and a goal apparently against Juve.
Yeah, that's right. The goal itself was a bit of a formality. It was a bit of magic from Vinicius Junior. His shot hit the post and Jude was there to tap it in. And I think the fact that he was there to tap it in is quite important because it shows he's in an advanced position. And when you saw the game that he played against Getafe at the weekend, again, which we spoke about on Monday, they've got to find a sort of balance in midfield. And Xabi Alonso's still figuring out what his best team is, the formation he wants them to play. But really, they're coming around to the idea that whatever happens, even post-Mbappe, they want Bellingham in an advanced position. It worked at Getafe at the weekend. And it really worked, particularly in the second half yesterday, because you're wondering where exactly do you put Bellingham? Well, I remember speaking to Xabi Alonso about this before when he was Leverkusen coach, and he said to me, look, people obsess over tactics, but the reality is the tactics are a framework, and then I trust the players, my players, I trust them to go out there and interpret the role as they see fit. And you can really see that with Jude Bellingham at the moment, because you saw him popping up almost as a second striker yesterday. He pops up on the right wing, he pops up on the left wing. And really, Juventus, who defended brilliantly and were really well organised, which is not always the hallmark of an Igor Tudor team, they didn't really know where to pick him up and they didn't know who to pick him up with. And that really, despite the fact that the goal looks easy, he's building up to that by the way that he's taking up so many different positions, and in the end, there's no one marking him.
Do you want to ask you finally about Mo Salah? I mean, feared throughout Europe for his goal-scoring prowess, but not happening for him so far. Bench last night, wasn't really at it when he came on. I mean, what are you making as somebody who's seen an awful lot of him in Europe, Andy?
Well, look, I think with Mo Salah, it's difficult, of course, because the Liverpool team has changed so much around him. And you could argue with Liverpool, and it's a discussion that everyone's had on talkSPORT, they've changed too much too quickly. And I have sympathy for that point of view. And I have sympathy for Mo Salah when it was his team to how things are changing there. But ultimately, some of the changes they've made are to benefit Mo Salah. When you re-sign him to that new contract, you're working out not just how can we make the most of him next year, but how can we really give him longevity? How can we prolong what he does well? And I think actually the best news from last night, never mind him coming on and not really doing that much, it doesn't really matter because they won comfortably anyway. And they were in a great position anyway. I think the best news for Mo Salah to come out of last night is the performance of Florian Wirtz, because Wirtz has found it hard to settle. He had a team that was built around him before. That's not the case. And whether you think number 10s work in English football is a different discussion, which would last a lot longer. But I think with Wirtz playing well, if Wirtz is playing well, that takes a lot of the creative load off Mo Salah. And all he has to do from that point is score goals. And that really simplifies the equation for him. So if Wirtz is playing well, then Salah is on the way to becoming the player that we all know he is.
Excellent. Andy, we're out of time. I'll catch up with you next
Thanks,
Monday,
Andy.
if not before. Thanks
you,
very
guys.
much. You can hear Andy on Trans Europe Express every Sunday evening with Danny Kelly and a cast of thousands from around Europe.
Yeah, great. It's a great
looking
listen.
at all the big... So it's always a great listen. You can download the podcast as well if you've missed the show on a Sunday. It's available as a podcast. Talking of which, if you can't get enough of the Champions League, make sure to tune in to today's edition of the talkSPORT Daily podcast for an in-depth Champions League roundup with European football expert Doogie Critchley. It's available on all podcast platforms as well as the talkSPORT app. Henry Lansbury joins us for a chat next, formerly of Forest and Arsenal, of course. But we're going to focus on Forest. John Dyche's first game tonight against Porto, live on talkSPORT from 8 o'clock. And we'll get Henry's take on what he's seeing at his old club. And that's coming up in a few moments' time. We're here with Toolstation. Gear up for those darker nights with electrical and lighting offers. Next stop. Not lightning offers. They might be lightning offers.
It might be, Paul.
Lighting offers. Next stop, Toolstation.